Hi guys, I'm Sam from the Unity of Life and welcome back to my channel. And today, like you will already be aware of if you have been watching my previous video, you will know that we're going to talk about the Drive to Survive Season 3, Episode 7. Please bear in mind that all this happens in 2020. The horrible year that we all wish that we could forget. So, just a little bit of recap of what's happened so far. In the last episode, we talked about Gasly and how well he was now doing, and how Red Bull weren't going to admit that maybe they potentially made a mistake when they decided to replace him rather than giving him a chance. And he has been really determined to prove them wrong and that their decision wasn't the best decision in the world. And in this episode, it's focused back on Haas. So just a little bit of a recap of what's already happened in this series. With Haas, they've had a bad season. It's not like that they don't have bad seasons. I don't think they've ever had a good season yet. So you remember in Season 2, in 2019, they had a big sponsor that injected a lot of cash into that team. However, they ended up withdrawing their sponsorship quite early on in the racing season because the car was just not getting the results that they wanted. In fact, even the driver said it was the worst car that they had ever drove, which to me just screams that it was a humble junk. But, you know, they survived. They didn't know whether or not that they were going to have a future in Formula 1 because, like I said, they don't seem to have a season that's really good for them. They don't really stand up from the crowd. Considering you would think they maybe might do a little bit better because they do have a successful NASCAR team. I know NASCAR and Formula 1 aren't quite the same, but, you know, you've got sort of the basics would be similar in a way, and you would think that maybe they could take some of that knowledge that they have from this successful NASCAR team and think, right, so what works well for this sport and isn't maybe working so well for this sport, and how can we use what we know from NASCAR and our NASCAR team to improve our Formula 1 team. So yeah, it was very fair to say that they had a really bad season in 2020. So they claim that Alfa Romeo, if I'm not saying this right, I do apologise. I'm not really good at it. But they're saying that they're the big rivals. So Kevin, who was driving for Haas at this time, didn't even complete one lap before he crashed out. So that's pretty bad and probably sucked. However, his teammate Grosjean didn't pit when everybody else did. So he tried to gain positions. He thought maybe this was the best strategy. However, so he was the only other car out there, right? Because, like I said, every single team, the only thing you really need to know is every single team, they have two drivers and they want to get both those drivers onto the podium because it's going to maximise their points for the the constructor championship, which is to do with obviously the car and the engineering aspects, and it obviously benefits the drivers to get up onto the podium because then they get points for the World Championship. So because Grosjean didn't pit when everybody else did in order to try and gain positions, which he did gain a few positions, he then obviously had to pit, and because he then pitted after everybody else, you know, it was not in his favour, but the car decided that it wouldn't start back up again. But he got there eventually. However, he finished last. And their biggest rival team, they finished 14th. So they had 6 positions up on Haas, because obviously they had one car that did not finish, and then Grosjean was the last car to cross the finish line. So tensions were high between these two teams in 2020, as they had not announced any of their drivers. So you know where this was going for, because neither driver that was driving for Haas drives for Haas anymore. They completely decided that they were going to have two new drivers, and one of those new drivers was going to be Mick Schumacher, the son of Michael Schumacher, who was a Formula 1 driver. And if you are a huge fan of Formula 1, you will also be aware that Michael's brother was also a Formula 1 driver. So Mick comes from a very successful racing family, which I think is quite fair to say. And so he was looking for a seat in Formula 1 for 2021, which he is driving for Haas in that season. Haas was specifically looking for a German driver for their German sponsors, because this time around they had a German sponsor, so they really wanted to have a German driver to satisfy these German sponsors. So who was going to be the more ideal than Mick Schumacher? He seemed like he was going to be the ideal candidate, because they were obviously going to be expecting great things from him, because they will have been watching him in like Formula 3 and Formula 2 and that career, and then because who his dad is and how successful a driver his dad was, they're obviously expecting quite big things from him as well. So Grosjean ended in one race finally got to finish 9th. And that actually meant that they were his first points of this season. So this was quite late on in the season as well. And Kevin came 13th. And one of their rival team was 10th. And this was the German Grand Prix in which Grosjean got his first points of the season. And so Haas decided it was for the best that both drivers would not be driving for them in 2021. They completely got rid of them because they weren't giving them the results that they would want to. And like I said, now we know that Mick is actually driving for Haas as of 2021. However, we do know that Grosjean's story with Haas, his last drive for them went up in flames. Literally, if anybody saw that, he's lucky to be alive. That was absolutely horrific. But we are going to be talking about that in a later episode. So don't worry, we are going to cover that horrendous, horrific accident that did occur. And in the next episode, we're going to be looking at the Drive to Survive, episode 8, which you probably expected. And we're looking at McLaren in that next episode. So if you like any of the content that I have been sharing on this channel so far, then you can click on my face and you can subscribe, and if you click that notification bell, you'll be informed every Wednesday and Saturday when I upload a video. And if you want to know a bit more about myself and everything that I've been up to, then I suggest you check out our social media. So we have an Instagram account, we have a Facebook page, and I also have obviously a personal Instagram account, which, you know, the links are in our channel's information, so you can check that out whenever you would like to, or I can put them in the description below. And if you want to look at any of the other Formula 1 content that I've been producing, then if you click down here, you can take a gander at all of that for whenever you would like. And I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.